The hardest thing about being a college student isn't the reading. It isn't studying. It isn't even the large piles of work that we get assigned. It's how we feel when that is what is required of us. In this video, I'm going to talk about why emotions, how we feel, matters for college students. This is the episode where we talk about how to handle feeling bad as a college student. So first, let's talk about why emotions matter. Your brain, that thing inside of your head that decides whether you study or not, has one main job, and that job is to keep you safe and alive. And one of the ways that it does this, how it focuses its attention to keeping you safe and alive, is through the motivational triad. So our brain is constantly seeking pleasure, whether that's physical pleasure or emotional pleasure. So whether it's you eating an ice cream or you feeling happy, it's always looking for that dopamine hit, because when you are enjoying yourself, when you are in pleasure, you cannot at the same time also be in danger. So it associates pleasure, it associates feeling good with you being safe. So that is the first bit of the motivational triad. The second part of the motivational triad is that the brain is always looking to avoid pain. Again, whether that's physical pain, like you getting shot, or emotional pain, breaking up with, the love of your life. Our brain associates physical and emotional pain with fear, with fight or flight, with potential death. So if you are in a situation where your fight or flight response is activated, your brain is getting prepared to protect itself, to keep itself alive. And then the last way that the brain focuses on keeping you safe and alive is through the conservation of energy. So whether that's physical energy or mental/emotional energy. And the reason why it wants to conserve energy is because, again, the brain's number one job is to keep you safe and alive. So it wants to make sure that the limited amount of energy that it has every single day isn't being used up on things that are not going to keep you safe and alive, because it's going to need that energy in case you come up against a threat. So when your brain is making decisions about what to do, it's always weighing the task against this motivational triad to keep you safe and alive. So is this pleasurable? Meaning, will I feel safe doing it? Because safety equals staying alive. Is it going to be painful? Because your brain learns that pain is potential death or potential threat or potential danger. And is it going to be worth me expending this energy? Because if I need it later, I want to make sure that I'm not using up my energy on things that don't matter. So this is important because if you have painful experiences, and usually when we're talking about college women, it's emotionally painful experiences associated to college and university, to studying, to writing papers, to reading textbooks, your brain is going to perceive that as a threat. And if it also perceives that reading the textbook or studying for the exam is going to be a lot of work, a lot of mental energy and effort, again, it's going to naturally convince you to pick something that it has evidence has kept you safe and alive before, is easy, isn't going to be a lot of work. When the brain and the body do not feel safe, any goal you have, even if it's going to help you to become the best student and make you so happy in your life, it will be overridden by your body's survival response, by this motivational triad. And what happens when the brain overrides your very good intention to read a textbook, because your interpretation is going to be too much work, it's going to take too long, I never understand what it is that I'm doing, and you're inflicting emotional pain on yourself based off how you're thinking, you're going to end up doing things like cleaning your entire apartment instead of working on your reading and your notes, because the brain has too many memories and familiar patterns associated, negative patterns associated with reading and taking notes, and maybe you feeling confused or associating it to failing an exam. And this I know it's frustrating to hear because it feels like you're constantly sabotaging yourself or your brain is trying to sabotage you, but it is just the way that the brain is wired. It is designed to keep you safe and alive. And this is why it's really important that if you are the type of student who procrastinates and you desire to procrastinate less, you have to understand the role that emotions play in your life, because as a college student, it's very rare that you're going to experience physical pain. A lot of the discomfort that you're feeling as a college student is emotional pain. It's negative experiences that you've had in your educational history. And all of that, your brain is interpreting as a threat. And so it's trying to protect you by distracting you, by making you focus on something else. And again, it's not really like you self-sabotaging, it's really a self-protection thing. So now let's talk about what emotions are, right? How are our feelings, the emotional pain that I'm talking about, how is that created? So emotions are a chemical cocktail that our brain produces in response to what is currently happening, so the events that are actually taking place right now, or our perception of what is happening, so our interpretation of what's happening, our thoughts about what is happening. And when it comes down to our perception of what is happening or our thoughts are about what is happening, this is coming from our past experiences, okay? The brain is constantly taking in data and it's sorting it and it's making connections to it. That's how the brain works. The brain is also a prediction machine, right? So the brain is always trying to predict what will happen next. What will she say next? What will he do next? What will she do next? And the way that it predicts is from what has happened in the past. Again, this is why it's really important to understand your patterns. If you've watched any of the videos that I have on this YouTube channel, and I'm always talking about it, right? So emotions are chemical cocktails that are produced by our brain. We experience those chemical cocktails as sensations in our body. So maybe if we're feeling embarrassed, we might feel the sensation of our cheeks getting hot. Or if we're really nervous before a presentation, we might notice a sensation of a quickening in our heart or a drop in our stomach, right? So the brain interprets what's happening, right? You're about to go on stage and do your presentation for your dissertation or something like that. And from past experiences, it has determined that this event is like a negative event for you, or that it's going to need extra energy or whatever it is. So it will do what the brain does, releasing chemicals to give you what it is that you need for that particular moment. And you experience that as sensations in your body. You then give that sensation a meaning based on past experiences. So you might interpret your cheeks getting hot and your hands like tingling as you feeling nervous, right? But the point of this that I'm trying to explain here is that we actually create our emotions. We create our emotions by what we're thinking and our interpretation of what is happening, right? So whether you're feeling happy, peaceful, calm, embarrassed, disappointed, angry, frustrated in your college experience, all of this is coming from the events that are actually occurring and your interpretation of it, your brain's interpretation of it. And again, the brain is interpreting it based off of past experiences. Our brain is essentially always predicting what will happen next, and those guesses are attempts for the body to regulate itself in terms of the energy needs required to keep you safe and alive. So your brain is trying to predict so that it can plan ahead about how much energy it is that you need. So if it's interpreting, let's say the reading in the textbook as something that you have done really well in the past and you have gotten really great results in the past, when it comes down to reading and taking notes, your brain is going to give you the amount of energy that you need for that in a calm state. If you have associations with a test leading to failure and that causes emotional pain, then whenever you sit down to take a test, your brain is going to interpret that it needs more energy because we're in a threatening environment and we're going to need to do something to keep us safe and alive, right? So the brain is always predicting so that it can plan your energy needs ahead of time to keep you safe and alive. And we get feedback from our environment, right? So the brain is predicting. It doesn't necessarily know what is going to happen next, right? There is some uncertainty in that. Your brain doesn't know that if you take a test, you're automatically going to fail. But if that has been your experience in the past, that is what the brain is going to assume. And then when you get your exam grade back and it is an F, then your brain stores that as further evidence that this is how we should respond in a test taking situation. So that is important because in order for you to not always procrastinate, in order for you to not always freak out when you're sitting during an exam, you have to essentially rewire and retrain your brain on what it's making things mean, what it's making the sensations in your body mean. And essentially what we want to do is we want to rewire and retrain our brain to use up and produce the appropriate sensations based off of what is currently happening in our current level of safety. As a college student, you have to do the work to become more emotionally intelligent, which is your ability to understand your emotions and the sensations that you're feeling, how it's being created, how you're interpreting it, and then choose the most useful interpretation for each situation you're in. So here's what I mean by that. You associate an exam to failure. That is the pattern that you have created. That is what you have taught your brain to expect. So when you sit in front of the exam to take it, your brain thinks that you're in a fight or flight response, that we're in danger, and so it starts to make your stomach go you start getting hot, you start sweating, you start getting really anxious, you look at like your heart rate's going up, your breathing is really fast and shallow. Your body is giving you the energy that it thinks that it needs in that moment to keep you safe and alive. You've taught it this from your past experience. When I take an exam, I fail. Okay? If you want to change that experience, you have to change that experience in regards to the interpretation of it. You have to begin to not see an exam as automatic failure. That is your job. You have to change your interpretation or gain new evidence by putting yourself in new experiences that your brain can do a feedback loop with and readjust its expectations. Right? You have to actively get curious and decide what things mean. This is you consciously rewiring and reprogramming your brain. Our brain is neuroplastic, so it is constantly going to predict and correct, to continually to create and revise its mental model, its interpretation of our world. Okay? What I'm saying by this is you can 1000% change your experience as a college student. If your pattern is whenever you're supposed to sit down and do a reading assignment for one of your classes, and you find yourself scrolling on your phone, you find yourself getting up to make yourself another cup of coffee, you find yourself cleaning up before you actually do the work, distracting yourself in any way, shape, or form, it's important that you question what is going on here. What was I feeling? What were the sensations that I was feeling? What were the thoughts that I was thinking about this reading assignment before I started doing the laundry instead of the reading, before I started scrolling through my phone instead of doing the reading? All of this is going to start to help you to become more self-aware of what your brain is predicting is going to happen. The more self-aware you become about what your brain is predicting is going to happen. So it might be that every time you read, it takes forever and it's so much energy and it's so much focus. And I feel like I never know what this is and I'm confused. And your brain is anticipating that. And because it's anticipating that and that feels bad in your body, it feels like a threat in your body, your brain is like, we're not going to do that. We're going to go do this and we're going to do this because it's safe and it's easy, right? You have to start noticing what triggers that, what creates that, what thoughts are creating that. The reason why you want to become self-aware of that is because you want to interrupt that pattern. That's how we rewire and retrain, is you interrupt that pattern. You come back to what is actually true. You question what is actually happening. You change your interpretation. You change your expectation of it. This is the work that we do inside of my group coaching program for college students called Educated: The Art of Becoming a Good Student, where I teach students how to create a study plan, how to create a study schedule, and how to stick to it by working with the brain and the emotions. I have an entire process called the Master Your Mindset as a College Student process, where I teach college women how to rewire and reprogram their brains so that they can create the motivation and the persistence to achieve their goals, even when they don't feel like it, even when they have negative associations with it. The vault is full of how-to videos, it's full of meditations, it's full of rewiring and reprogramming audios, it's full of journaling prompts to help you to start questioning these patterns and help your brain start to interpret it in a new way. It's full of emotional intelligence tools to help you to understand the sensations and the feelings that you are experiencing as a student. And all of this is going to help you to stop procrastinating and stop self-sabotaging. In this program that I run, I open it a few times a year. The next round is open right now, and we are closing the doors for enrollment on May 29th. So if you have any questions about Educated: The Art of Becoming a Good Student, and you want to learn your patterns and you want to start interrupting your patterns and creating new ones so that you can be the type of student who earns amazing grades and has more free time and is able to enjoy their life alongside college, the information is going to be in the description box, and I also have a video on the screen right now that you can watch to find out more information about the program.